Welcome, everyone. Glad you're here today. Glad I'm here today. We have lots to talk about, but first we have to start off with a little humor. Yesterday, Erin came in and was talking about a press conference with a Kansas City Chief player. And of course, being in Topeka, Kansas and near Kansas City, we are rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl Sunday. So we're all over it and it's every day. But one of the best defensive backs of all time, Chris Jones, was doing a press conference, and he had on an athletic jacket, and hanging off of it were a couple of stuffed animals. And we were kind of laughing about it. And then I remembered that there was a designer who had a runway show this season, or last fall, that showed all these stuffed animals. And so I thought you'd get a kick out of seeing it, and I think all of us as sewers should kind of remember this because, like, here's menswear, fall, winter 2022-23. There's just a few little stuffed animals hanging off this guy's top. So I've decided, well, and then here's Chris Jones. You have to look at him. He's a pretty handsome guy. But there's his Louis Vuitton jacket. And it's all about global anxiety. So Louis Vuitton has taken on this menswear statement of, you know, carry or wear the cuddly things to make you feel better. So I've decided that if we as sewers complain about our mistakes and we don't really want to rip out or redo something, we'll just hang a stuffed animal over it. It'll be fine, and you'll be right in style. So that's today's humor. All right, so this is February, and we are promoting a second Sew Confident garment. We've been using the Now shirt pattern for January and February, and January, of course, was a corduroy jacket, pretty casual, but February's is a little different. It is right here, and we're using silk shantung in either black or mahogany. This is the mahogany. And we're adding some silk dupioni faux binding. There's a really unique technique for this binding down the front, around the collar, and at the bottom of the sleeve. And then we've even given it a little more detail with beautiful metallic thread making pin tucks, both in the front and the back in a very unique A-line, which emulates the shape of the garment, which we've done also to this garment for this month. So of course you can sign up for Sew Confident by the year, you can sign up for just this project, or you can sign up for January and February and use your Now shirt pattern twice. That's kind of the routine for the whole year, is to use one pattern for a couple of months back to back. So in the kit you get the silk, the metallic thread, the regular sewing thread. You get 3 colors of silk dupioni to use for binding. You get the buttons, and I think that's all you get, but it's a lot. So take advantage of it. All right. So we've talked about our stuffed animals. I don't know, that just makes me smile. It's great. Cover stitch class. Last week we did our really second tutorial Zoom live class where I demonstrated how to use cover stitching in fashion. And it was a very successful class. It lasted about 45 minutes. We had a lot of people signed up, and we know by the numbers of people who signed up and the number of people who watched that there were a lot of people who watched it later, probably. And so you can watch it later as well, and you can still sign up for it. It's quite an inexpensive class. It's only $10. It's something you can watch anytime and refer back to. I'm certainly not an expert on cover stitching, but I have kind of honed in on what I want to know about cover stitching for what I use on our patterns and fashion sewing. So I think you get a lot out of it, and there's still time to sign up. That class is on our website, so just check it out. All right, today we are going to talk about the Bristol. It's just that, I don't know, it's kind of the time of year, time of life, time of season, whatever, where, you know, a sweatshirt and perhaps a little upscale sweatshirt is just what we need. We're beginning to, you know, the sun's out, we're beginning to think about spring coming, and so a little bit lighter weight and yet it's still cool and cold, and we want that sweatshirt look. And I think I'm hearing it from everyone that, you know, we're just dressing more casually. We just got into that mode in the last couple of years, and we've stayed there, but now we're beginning to take that casual look and maybe give it a little bit of a jump up, just a little bit. So we're talking about the Bristol, which is what I have on, because I think this is the Sewing Workshop's really extra fine sweatshirt, so to speak. And you can see by what I have on that it has this interesting yoke, has shoulder seams and a yoke, and it has this panel in the back that can be a contrast, and it has a band on the bottom that stops before it goes clear around. So it has all the elements of a sweatshirt, but to me, it has a real designer look. And I was remembering last night where we got this pattern and why it's named what it's named. Ann Netting, who's a friend of mine, been a friend of mine for a long time from the Sewing Workshop days in San Francisco. Actually, she was the first person I ever met out there about 35 years ago, maybe 40 years ago. And she sent me this pattern. And she lives on Bristol Street, so it's called Bristol. And she helped develop this pattern. And we made it into a top like this, and we made it into a dress. So here is the dress, which I also like. And this is in a heavier knit as well. It is a garment that needs to be at least partially made in a knit. I'll show you in a minute. There are parts of it that don't have to be in a knit. But I love this as a dress. And you can see that you still have the same kind of inverted V panel in the back, some cuffs that roll up, and you have this separation of the band at the bottom. It's just been lengthened, basically. This is a black one that I have worn a lot. It's a very unique fabric, first of all, kind of a boucle knit fabric that has a little bit of glisten and glitter to it, some sequins that are just kind of thrown in there. So it's not a super dressy garment, but I have worn it to a lot of functions. And I wear it with black leggings that have maybe lace on the bottom or some little something on the bottom and some kind of, you know, great necklace or whatever. And I think this is my go-to, I'll call it party dress, for lack of a better word. You can tell that I don't dress up super much. But so this is ponte up here on the yoke, and ponte sleeves, ponte cuffs, and then this interesting nubby fabric for the body of it, front and back. So don't forget the dress part of this, but we're going to show you and talk about today some of the ways you can use this garment. Here's one that I really like that I made a while back. And you do see that there is a yoke here, but when you use the same fabric, then you don't pick up quite that contrast. But this was something that I did that I think I saw something, I don't know where, internet somewhere. So this is a print knit. And it looks like it's cut up, but it's really just one solid pattern piece that I cut out, drew a shape, and I used heat and bond on the back side of this knit, and I just kind of placed that shape somewhere in one of these knits that has a lot going on, and fused this whole panel down, and fused these little bits down as well, and then did a hand blanket stitch using button craft thread all around the edges. So it has this kind of handcrafted look. Didn't take very long to do it. Kind of heals those edges, although it's probably there permanently, but it definitely is going to stay if by some chance this releases over time with the washing or cleaning or whatever. But this is another kind of gutsy knit, and we've used some black knit for the binding and the band and the cuffs and so forth. So this happens to be a tutorial that I wrote, and it's called Appliequé something or other. Let me see, I can't remember. Appliequé Bristol Top. How creative. Well, it's what it is, exactly what it is. So this is the Appliequé Bristol Top that you can have some fun with. So as long as I'm talking about Bristols, let's show some Bristols that Samantha Plow made. First of all, she made this one, and I think I've adopted this. She may not get this back. I like it a lot. It's so comfortable. She sent a piece of paper back saying that this particular sweater knit had been really nice to work with, easy to work with, and it's so soft. It's warm, but not too warm. It's lightweight, but it's a fabulous piece of fabric. And then we have a lot of this navy blue rib knit, which we pull in every once in a while with a lot of different fabrics. But it's just one of those good old standards that we have on hand to use for lots of things. But here it is. It's a rib knit, but it doesn't look like the traditional rib knit. There is a rib, but it's pretty, well, it's not real evident that it's a rib knit, but it clearly is a rib knit. So that's been used for the yoke and the back and the cuffs and the neck binding. So thank you, Samantha. So you have to see what she made, though. This is pretty awesome, I have to say. And I don't know, if Samantha's on the call today, maybe she can put in who her inspirations were. I know she follows all kinds of major designers, expensive designers, and she copies them, or at least is inspired by them. I wouldn't say she copies them. So this is a Bristol. Remember when we were talking about fur a couple of weeks ago on Facebook Live? Well, this is a fur that we don't have anymore, but we had. And she used the fur, which is not a stretchy fabric. It might be a little bit, but I wouldn't call it a super stretchy fabric. So that's been used for the body, and front and back. And then a white knit for the sleeves and the cuff and the rest of it. And then she put this with white knit pants that are West End pants that have the pocket. This is our wide leg pant. And she sent a picture of her in this ensemble, a very glamorous photo in front of some palm tree, which is sort of where she lives. And it was beautiful, you know, just incredibly beautiful. So I love this whole tonal look. We've been kind of talking about that every once in a while on Facebook Live, that we're seeing a lot of garments that are made in the same fabric, top and bottom, and definitely tonal kinds of things. So that is really, really unique. And the next one. Oh, Palermo, okay. Palermo or Paloma? Palermo. Ah, all right. All right then, Samantha, who's your inspiration on this one? Here are the pants. Now this time we're using the Hudson pants. And the Hudson pants are not quite as wide, and they're a little bit tapered at the bottom of the leg because there are 2 darts in the front and 2 darts in the back. And this is made out of our wonderful drapey rib knit that we've shown a few times on this kind of programming. Notice that this has a pocket in organza, which I absolutely love. And it's right there on that side seam, hip area. Kathy Davis was in here the other day, and she spotted these, and she says, oh my gosh, this is happening everywhere. There are pockets all over pants. Who did this? You know, she wanted to know exactly what was going on. So anyway, this is the top that goes with it, and this is a beautiful pink viscose knit, jersey knit. And then the use of this organza for the back panel and the sleeves. So this is how you can combine some wovens. I would suggest that the top yoke pretty much be a knit. That needs to have some give to it. But the rest of this garment can probably be made in either a combination of knit and woven, or maybe even all woven. So isn't that fantastic, though? This is a great color combination, the red and the pink. And I know when you would have this on, that pocket would show like that. Is there a designer inspiration on this one?
She just said it was her Valentine outfit.
Oh, well, we've got to get it back to her before Valentine's Day. All right. Well, I think this is really incredible. I know that she's washed the organza. I can kind of tell, I'm assuming. Silk organza, if you wash it, it has a nice, kind of cuts some of the shine. It doesn't make it quite as crisp. Makes it a little bit drapier and has a little bit of a texture to it now, which I like very much. So as you can see, you can make the Bristol top out of something very fine and thin, I'll call it thin, a tissue weight knit, all the way up to a heavier sweater knit. And then I want to show you one that I have made. And the joke about this one is that I made this for Alex, my daughter, and she's never gotten it because I like it so much. But this is a laser cut, kind of lightweight scuba knit. So these are little holes, and that's been cut out. And because it's scuba, it doesn't ravel. It heals itself on those cuts. So you could wear something under this, a color. You could wear gray or black or red or whatever, and it would look like it was checkerboard. This is white knit for the yoke, white knit for the sleeves, and the back panel is white knit as well. And I've worn this a lot. I wear this with skirts. I wear it with pants. I think this is just, we don't think about making something white. We're always thinking color, I think, when we sew. We're thinking bigger impact. But the fact is, this is the kind of thing that you're going to see in a store and actually buy. And so why aren't we making all black garments or, excuse me, all white garments or neutral garments or whatever? And at the last minute yesterday when we were setting up, I pulled out the knotted scarf, which I still love. Erin wears hers every once in a while. She has a red one that's really cool. But this is a little tutorial that we have, kind of an inexpensive little tutorial. And when you do this, it looks like a basketball goal. But it's a tube made out of jersey knit that, when stretched and steamed, curls, so it looks like little tubes of jersey, and they're tied together with all these little knots. This is an idea from Alabama Channon. So we saw this concept when we were visiting Alabama Channon, and you can make it out of any kind of knit, something that's pretty stretchy, and something that is a jersey so that it does curl. If you use an interlock that doesn't curl, it doesn't have the same effect. So you want to make it out of something like a jersey. Not just like a jersey, you want to make it out of jersey. So I'm wearing this. I put it over a mix-it tank, but of course you could put it over a t-shirt or anything, but this happens to be a mix-it tank. All right, so we're featuring all of these incredible sweater knits today. All of them, the weight that I have on, this very lightweight, super drapey, very soft knit. And most of these, all of these on the wall have polyester in them, which gives them the stability. But many of them have rayon, and all of them have spandex, because that's what helps give it even more stretch. So I want to show you other things that we've made out of this, and then talk a little bit about how you sew this. And it's not like I have this long list of how you sew sweater knits, because it's pretty darn short. Even though, we hear the word sweater knit and we go, oh, that sounds hard. I don't know how to do that. Oh my gosh. Well, the fact is, these particular knits just sew up like any other knit. You're going to want a walking foot, or that even feed feature on your sewing machine. That, to me, is number one. You're going to experiment with needles to make sure that you're not going to get a skipped stitch. I use universal needles. I don't have any trouble, but some people use ballpoint needles, jersey needles, whatever you have to use for your machine is fine, but don't get a needle that's too large. I've really dialed down the size of the needles that I use for all my projects, and particularly knits. And I'm using like a 65 or a 70 millimeter needle pretty much all the time now. 80 used to be my go-to size, and now I'm just not there anymore. So then our Fusy Web, which is our sort of temporary glue, is essential for hemming garments like this, particularly like the very front of this Bristol, that's where there's nothing sewn to it. That's pretty much the only hem on this garment now that I look at it. So Fusy Web, the right needle. I have purchased a different throat plate for my machine rather than the 8 millimeter or 9 millimeter throat plate that came with the machine. I purchased a 5.5 millimeter. That means the diameter of the hole that the needle goes into is smaller. And so the fabrics are not getting sucked down into the throat plate. Sometimes if things are just hanging up just a little bit, I might put a little bit of tissue paper right under the beginning of a seam. I don't always do that, but if things are just not feeding through, you can either change the presser foot pressure, I always have a hard time saying that, or you can put some paper under it and things will feed through much easier. I don't do a lot of back stitching on knits, particularly when a seam is going to be crossed by something else, because that's where things can get kind of hung up at the beginning of a seam on a knit. So we have needles, thread, walking feet. Seam finishes are our standard seam finish. You sew a straight stitch using polyester thread, excuse me, on the knit, on the 5/8 inch seam allowance, and then I use isocord thread, 3 threads in my serger for the narrowest edge I can get on those 2 edges, and I serge finish the 2 edges together and then press the seam towards the back or whichever direction it should go. So, and then this would be a great garment to use for your new cover stitch machine or the one that's in the box that you haven't gotten out, which we talked about last week, because I think that's why so many people signed up for the class, was they have the machine and it's over there in the box, which mine was for quite a long time before I got into it. So they're super easy to sew. There's nothing weird about sewing these particular sweater knits. Now there are sweater knits, of course, that are really gutsy, lots of texture, and that's kind of a different story in terms of some of the finishing of it. But these you can just sew just like any other knit that you have sewn. Super easy. The fact that they're mostly polyester, then they wash really beautifully and very little wrinkling, if any. I steamed a couple of little things out of here only because they'd been kind of wadded up on the shelves perhaps. But once you make this garment, it's likely you're never going to press it. So, but as always, we recommend that you wash a small sample, maybe 4 inches or 6 inches of whatever fabric you're using. Throw that in the washing machine and see what happens. It may shrink a little bit one way or the other, either in width or in length, and you don't really know that until, of course, you have pre-washed it. But chances are these particular fabrics are not going to shrink much. But pre-washing is always a good idea if you're going to wash the garment. And this is the kind of garment that's just casual enough that I'm going to hope I can wash the garment. If fabrics like maybe this navy, which is a pretty saturated deep color, you might want to pre-wash, make sure there's no extra dye in it that's going to bleed onto something else. I think that's always a good idea. So just be careful about that. But other than that, totally washable and totally easy to work with. So we've got a couple of plaids here that I wanted to point out first. They're similar but different. And I think that these plaids go with almost everything on this wall. So whereas I'm showing yokes in solid colors, in blacks and whites and whatever, navy, you know, I think that not only would a total garment look great in the plaid, but the yoke or sleeves or just the front or just the back panel or pieces and parts of the Bristol could be done in these plaids. So we'll start at the bottom here. For some reason, this reminds me of Burberry. Now, there's nothing Burberry about this in terms of how we acquired this fabric, but I love the fact that these flowers are full of little plaids. And that sort of bisque color for the flowers and the blue and green for the leaves and the charcoal gray that's kind of mottled. So this is a printed fabric, you can see, and the texture of this is almost like a crepe. It's a different weave than a jersey, and it's quite nice, and it's very soft, and it's not super curly, so it's really easy to work with. You're not going to get that curl like you do on a jersey. It's more like an interlock, but it's some kind of weave that honestly I cannot quite identify. So anyway, it's a really unusual fabric, and I think it looks great with that plaid with it. Plaid on plaid, 2 different plaids, but they really work together. So this one is even lighter weight. This is a teeny bit heavier, but this is just like the one that I have on. And several of these are. And again, they're printed, but beautiful tones of grays and blues and roses and mauves, and just fantastic, really. Very abstract. You don't have to match anything. You can just cut it out, sew it up. This one has more of a light beige tone and some neutrals in it, and then with these peach tones and the dark charcoal. And of course I'm into this because it looks like brush strokes, and I love things that have brush strokes. even though it does have, I don't know, it probably has some motif there, but to me it's just an all-over abstract brushstroke pattern. This one is similar. In fact, I think it's the same, might be the same pattern. It looks like it is, isn't it? Just a different colorway. I hadn't noticed that until this minute, actually. But again, a neutral background, pale gray, with some oranges and burgundies and blues. This one is a different plaid, but I think these two are fantastic together. But I also like it with the other ones as well, with this one. This is a little different. This is even softer. It feels like cashmere. It's so soft and lovely. We don't have very much of this left, so there's probably just a few cuts left on this one. And then this is the one that I have on, which I totally love. And it's with this navy blue, but I also like it with the light blue as well. And I don't know why you can't put it with the plaid either. So I have some other garments that I want to show you. Deb is always amazing in what she comes up with. I'll show you this one first. So this is the Hudson top, different pattern than the Bristol, obviously, but I believe she's shortened it just a little bit, and she's tapered the sleeve. The Hudson sleeve tends to be a little bit wider, so she's narrowed this and used the regular cowl neck, but it's in this fabric. And she's worn this quite a bit. You know, I shouldn't say all the time, but she wears it a lot, and she wears it with another layer, and she wears it with skirts, she wears it over a dress. You could wear this over an E dress or a cityscapes dress or something like that, or you can wear it under like a vest, a different kind of jacket. So it's very versatile, and she wears it with boots and tennies and all that stuff. I think it's really great. But she came in the other day with this one, and we were all kind of shocked by what was going on here. And none of us could figure out what this was, actually. Even Erin was stumped. And Erin's into all of our dresses. But Deb started with the E dress. Now, the E dress is a sleeveless dress. So she has used the shape of the E dress in this fabric, obviously. And she's added pockets because she likes pockets. Nice deep pockets. The neck is the cowl neck from the Hudson top. So she's transposed that neckline and that cowl onto the E dress pattern. And this sleeve, once you look at it, you realize it's the Maison sleeve. Marceau sleeve, thank you. It has the tucks, the panel underneath, and the two tucks. So she's used 3 patterns here. It's a real pattern hack. And she had it on with leggings that were this sort of mauve color and some mauve boots. What else did she have on? She had on a turtleneck. It was, I think, too, the same color. So it was all layered up and really, really, really cute. So you don't have to make the Bristol in any of these fabrics. There are other garments that you can make. And another garment that is not in one of these fabrics, but I want to point it out to you because it is in a sweater knit. And this is the Madrid pattern. And we have a tutorial called the Sweater-Knit Madrid of how to take the Madrid pattern, do a little adaptation to the pattern, it's pretty minor, and then how to sew it in a sweater knit. Because sometimes in a sweater knit, you don't want to have a lot of seams. So you don't want a garment, in my opinion, that's too fitted. So I have I guess refined this or edited this a little bit. For instance, this is usually a separate placket, but I thought that would be too bulky, too heavy. So I show you how to make that a continuous placket. I've done the hems a little bit different, the collar a little bit different, just to cut down on the number of seams that are happening in this garment. And if you're interested in that concept, then this is a tutorial how to do that. But I think this would look great. This looks great in a drapey fabric. So just because this is solid, I think it would be great in one of these knits as well, or one of these patterns as well. So that is today. Do you have any questions?
Do. Did Deb have to do some fudging of the arm's eye to add the marceau to the dress?
I can't tell you. We didn't ask her that. But you know, the idea is to measure the circumference of the arm's eye, and then you measure the sleeve cap of the sleeve. And for a knit, it can be almost 1-to-1, but you could probably ease in up to about 1 inch of that. So if you had to make the arm's eye bigger, which might be likely, you would just maybe deepen that a little bit. My guess is the dress, because it's a dress, is a little more closer fit under the arm than maybe the marceau. But I didn't ask her that. But that's how you know, is that you measure. And you need to be within 1 inch, 1.5 inches. The sleeve can be that much bigger than an arm's eye. But in a knit, it can be really 1-to-1.
How much of each fabric for the 2-color sweatshirt?
Oh, I would think a yard each.
Did we, on Samantha's sheet, did we say how much yardage? That might give us an idea.
We sent her 1.5 yards of each, but my guess is it may not need 1.5 yards, but I don't know. Maybe she can confirm whether she used all of it or not.
Isn't there a pattern that you have recommended in the past for the E-dress?
Isn't there a what now, a fabric?
Isn't there a pattern that you have recommended in the past for an E-dress? I wonder if that's
Well,
another sleeve?
I think what you might be talking about is the origin of the E-dress is the Anne's tank. And you start with the Anne's tank, which is what the E-dress is, same neckline, same arm's eye, same shoulder, and then we just extended it into a dress. That may be what you're talking about. And so that answers that next question. Because the Anne's tank is in the same pattern as the Anne's cardigan, you can use the Anne's cardigan sleeve in the E-dress if you want a sleeve, which I've done many times.
Yeah, that's where she was going with it.
Yeah, which brings up another point. One thing that Deb kind of wishes she had done, might as well say this, because she used the E-dress, this is a wide enough neck opening, but she does kind of wish she had made this a little bit wider. But if you're narrow-shouldered, that's going to be great. If you're really wide-shouldered, you might want to consider making the E-dress a little bit wider at the shoulder.
Can you repeat what the pattern is, the gold sweater knit? What pattern is that?
Yeah, this is the Madrid pattern. I like to wear this over a turtleneck, have another layer that actually peeks out underneath.
Do you have to use ribbing for the hem and cuffs, or can we use another stretch fabric?
Yeah, you do not have to use ribbing. As a matter of fact, this one that Samantha made, this is just regular jersey knit. It's the same jersey knit that was used here. You do not have to use ribbing. And as a matter of fact, you don't even have to have a cuff like this. You don't have to have a deep cuff. I put a smaller band on the bottom of my sleeve here. Or you don't have to have a band at all. You could just hem the sleeve.
I never realized that you did that. Until
You've never
this
realized
moment,
that?
Until
Well,
this moment.
I'm glad I brought this to your attention today.
I know, I am too. I'm so scary. Okay, how long can you make the dress without losing the style?
Well, it's already a long dress, and it is well below calf already. So how long can you make it before you lose the style? I would say you can make it ankle length, don't you think?
I think
I
there's
mean, the dress that you have on right now is a couple inches above your ankle.
You see a lot of kind of sheath dresses or things like that that are ankle length right now, midi, I think.
I think all you have to do is make sure that there is a shape to this dress in terms of coming in a bit at the waist. And I would just measure where, take your back, neck, waist measurement, determine where your waist is, or where it used to be, in my case, and make sure that that indentation is in that area and not too high and not too low.
And I think same with the Bristol. I think that might have been what she was talking about, but I think you could still make that longer.
The Bristol. I'm sorry. I was thinking e-dress. Sure. I don't know why. Yeah, let's look at that. We've never made a longer one, but I don't know why you couldn't. You could take that clear down, don't you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
What size Bristol are you wearing?
I'm wearing a medium.
How would
I can wear a small, by the way. I can wear a large. I think this is a small. No, it's a medium. I must wear a medium.
Can this yoke be changed to a V-neck or a more scooped neckline?
Sure, you can do anything you want to this neckline. This can be more scooped. V-neck, sure. You've got a somewhat limited space here to work with, so you'd want to have some balance of that. I would not go too deep on the V. I'd leave a fair amount of fabric. And by the way, the nice thing about this yoke shape is that you can sew this to fit you. So for instance, if you are maybe you've cut out a front yoke and a back yoke, you could pin that together across the seam, across the shoulder, and actually try this on and pin that to fit you. So the contour is exactly where your curves are or where you start the curve. It's like narrowing and widening a shoulder. You can do that through the pinning of that, quote, muslin yoke.
So would that be kind of like a high round back adjustment? Is that how you would do that?
No, this is just shaping the seam.
So how would you do a high round back adjustment?
A high round back adjustment, I'd probably, in this case, deal with this seam here. I would probably scoop this seam to give you more fabric. It's probably possible to do our standard rounded back adjustment, but honestly, I think because of where this is, there's no reason you can't reshape that.
And maybe Betsy can answer this. Is the Bristol a print pattern or a digital pattern? And I'd have to look that up myself.
Well, we know it's a printed pattern.
True.
We're not sure if it's a digital. We've lost track.
We can't remember.
We can't remember. And the shorter version, the sweatshirt, the shirt, and the dress are both in the pattern. It's illustrated as a dress. So when you look at the front of the printed pattern, you think it might be a dress pattern, but both are in there.
And it's just print.
Okay.
Thanks, Betsy.
Okay, Betsy, you got another one to add to your list, apparently.
Okay,
we're making an effort to digitize all of our patterns. So we're getting through them one by one.
Okay, I don't see any other questions.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank Samantha for making this for me and for sending these fantastic designer garments, the fur and the pink and the organza. I get so many ideas from Samantha. It's really fantastic. So thank you, Samantha. Appreciate it. So on sale today, we have the Bristol pattern, print, and the Madrid pattern, which is print. And we have a couple of tutorials. We have the tutorial that deals with this, how to make this applique Bristol. So not only does it talk to you in the tutorial about doing this applique, but it talks about the whole construction of the Bristol. And then we have one called the Sweater-Knit Madrid, how to adapt your pattern a little bit and how to sew this in a sweater knit. We have and let's see, I guess that's it on sale. We do have the knotted scarf Tutorial available is $4.99. It's not on sale, it's already quite inexpensive. And then don't forget that I have a Craftsy class called The Ultimate Guide to Sewing Knits, and there's a lesson in there on sewing sweater knits. So it's real comprehensive on sewing. That particular Craftsy class is divided into weights of knits, starts with tissue weight and ends up with heavy, heavy sweater, whatever knits, and everything in between. And the right seam finishes and needles and how you sew, choices that you make to sew each kind of weight of knit better.
A few more questions.
Okay.
Where is your necklace from?
Oh, this is an old Babette necklace that I bought years ago. Babette used to be a designer in San Francisco, and then she expanded and had various stores, and this was one in Minneapolis. There was a Babette store. But I've owned this for probably at least 10 years. It's rubber, black rubber. Yeah.
Does the dress have a pocket? If not, which pocket would you use?
The dress pattern does not have a pocket, but if I were to do a pocket, do we have an inseam pocket? The Stafford pocket is an inseam pocket. My guess is if you look through your pattern stash, you've got a pattern that has an inseam pocket, and I would just copy it or make your own. You could, if you have a pocket in a garment, you can actually trace over it the shape of it. That's all you need is the shape.
In a couple of our pants pattern, we included an add-on inseam pocket, like the Hudson.
But that's the West End, so that's not an inseam pocket. Is it in the West End? I mean, in the Hudson?
No, it was just an inseam pocket. I think it was just an add-on that we that we did.
All right.
Recommended color knit for the yoke, back, and cuffs for the gray pink sweater knit, please.
Gray, pink, maybe this one. This is gray and pink also. This is gray and pink.
Well, maybe what would be a universal?
Well, okay. So to me, the navy goes with this really well. Let me get it out here. We'll just talk about all of them. So the navy looks good with this one. This one, oh, I didn't show you these things. Oh my gosh. I'm glad we're not done. So we have 3 other fabrics on sale. We have black knit, which would look great with this. We have white knit. And the reason I pulled the white out is because we have this really interesting laser cut fabric. Can't forget this. Now it's a little different cut pattern than the one on display here, but one side of it is white and one side of it is gray. So you can use either side, but if you use the white side, then you could use white with it and make it look just like that. Okay, so back to, so point is, black would look really great with this. And this one, I'm assuming we're not talking about the plaid because I love those together. But this one, we could probably find a fabric that would go with this in terms of a charcoal or even a blush tone. In fact, I think I found a blush tone yesterday in our inventory and I liked it. But this blue, I wonder what that would look like with the blue. Yeah, I almost forgot about that laser cut. No, it's not the right blue, but we probably have something. So that might be a phone call to, if you're interested, we'd find something to go with it.
There is a question from Helen about, is there any more of the sweatshirt fabric left? I'm not sure exactly which. If it's the blue solid, I know we're limited on that quantity. So if you don't see it anymore, then that could mean it's sold out.
And sometimes what happens during Facebook Live is that Deb will see some orders coming through, realizing that we're getting close, and might take it off the website. And then when we get the fabrics down there, we realize we might have more. So it might go back on, or you can call.
The applique on the Bristol is, and you used heat and bond. Is it stiff?
Well, I don't consider it super stiff, but it's definitely a little different character. But you know, I can feel it, but it's still, I think, appropriate to the weight of this fabric. If I were putting this on super tissue weight knit, I probably would notice it even more. But this is, you know, this is pretty drapey, pretty crunchy.
And they have different weights that you
They
can
do,
buy.
yeah.
So I would get it to coordinate with whatever your fabric
Right.
is. Is the black knit the same fabric as the Maison Joggers kit?
No, it is not. The Maison Jogger kit, I'm pretty sure, is cotton.
Right.
And this is viscose. This is the same fabric that I believe that we used for the Edgewater dress.
Right.
This is rayon from bamboo, 5% spandex. This is just your classic t-shirt weight. It's not tissue weight, it's not heavy, it's just classic weight knit jersey. Now the white that's on sale is a very, very fine French terry. You can hardly tell that it's French terry. But again, just a nice, simple mid-weight. But it is a French terry.
How much ease in the hip area for the Bristol? Like how much ease do you have, and maybe how much ease should there be?
Well, I probably have 12 inches. I mean, I'm pinching about 3 inches, aren't I? Excuse me. So 6 inches and 6 inches. 10, 12 inches, I would think, something like that.
Okay, I think that's
All right.
it.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me again today, and we'll see you next week.